Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel Ramos, and today I'll be talking about service-oriented architecture, or SOA. So first, the agenda of today's presentation. I will start by doing introduction to SOA. I will talk about the key concepts, service components, service communication. I will then talk about the benefits and challenges of SOA, also the architecture layers, and I'll then give some real world examples, talk about the best practice, and I will finish by a conclusion. So first, what is SOA? SOA stands for Service-Oriented Architecture, which is an approach to software development that emerged in the late 90s. So in essence, SOA is a design principle that focuses on creating software system as a collection of loosely coupled, interoperable, and reusable services. And this service can be thought as a self-contained module that performs specific function and communicate with each other over standardized protocols. So when thinking about SOA, there are three key concepts to think about. We have services, loose coupling, and we also have reusability. So what is a service? A service in SOA is a unit of software that performs a specific task. So we can think, for example, an authentication service. And loose coupling stands for the independency between services. So usually the services, they have minimal or total independence between each other. And we also have the reusability, which stands for that the service can be reused across different applications. So in SOA, a service has three main components. We have the service provider, the service consumer, and the service contract. The provider is who creates and maintains the service. The consumer obviously is who consumes the service. And we also have the contract, which defines how the service can be assessed. So service communication, how the communication between multiple services work. So we have four different types of communication. We have message-based communication, where the data is exchanged in a structured format. And we also have the service interfaces and the communication protocols, for example, SOAP and REST. And we also have the Enterprise Service Bus, or the ESB, which facilitates communication and integration between different services and applications within an enterprise. So, for example, as you can see in this image, we have three different services. We have CRM, we have order management, and we also have billing. And we can see that the client is accessing the multiple services with the use of the ESB. Also, in this other example, we have four different services. We have account, book, order, and shipping. And as we can see as well, the Enterprise Service Bus is being used to communicate the services. So what are the benefits of service-oriented architecture? Why it became so popular in the late 90s and in the early 2000s? So the first thing is the scalability. So as the services are independent, it's really easier to scale them without affecting the system, and the same for the flexibility. So it's a lot easier to make changes to individual service without affecting the entire system, the entire application. We also have the interoperability, which means that the service can be used across different platforms and technologies, and also the reusability. That means that the service can be reused, which would cause a reducing cost, because if the service can be reused, then that would reduce the development time and cost in future within the enterprise. So because of its scalability and also its use in large enterprises, we also have some challenges in service-oriented architecture. for example, the complexity. So to manage a large number of services can become really complex depending on the size of the application and also the amount of services you have to manage. And same for the governance, because to ensure the consistency and compliance across these multiple services would require really good governance. And we also have the legacy systems integration, which means that to integrate a service-oriented architecture in an existing system can be challenging as well. So in SOA, we also have three architecture layers. We have presentation layer, service layer, and data layer. So the presentation layer deals with the user interface. The service layer is where the service reside. And we also have the data layer that is responsible for data storage and retrieval. So a real world example is usually large enterprises. For example, IBM, Google, Netflix, and Airbnb. As we can see in this example, on this picture, we have an example for IBM, where you can see multiple services, for example, interaction, process, information, business, and we can see that these multiple services are communicating using an enterprise service bus. And finally, some best practices whenever developing service-oriented architecture. We have three key things here. We have the service design principles, we have governance strategies, and we also have monitoring and management. So for the service design principles, we have single responsibility principle, which means that each service should have a clear and specific responsibility. So you should not develop a service that does multiple things. Service reusability. So whenever you're developing a service, you should have in mind that you're gonna reuse this service later. So just whenever you're designing it, it's good to have that in mind. And also the service abstraction, which will be to hide internal implementation details of the service from the clients, which would help to promote the loose coupling and also allow for changes to the service without affecting the clients. The governance strategies, we have service ownership, which is to clearly define the owner responsible for each specific service, and we also have the security policies, which will be to enforce security and access control to protect both the service and the data. And we also have service registry and directory, which maintains a centralized service registry or directory to enable service discovery and also facilitate governance. And finally, monitoring and management. So a key practice for monitoring the service will be to implement tools to monitor its performance and also the availability. And for the management, it is advised to have a service dependency mapping, which is basically a map to understand the dependence of each service and the impact of the possible failures or errors or changes would have in the service that are dependent. So in conclusion, SOA is a powerful architectural approach that enables flexibility, scalability, and reusability in software development, and is also really useful for large and diverse applications. For example, that I mentioned, IBM, Netflix, and applications where you'd require multiple services. And here are all the references that I used to build this presentation. So if you have any questions or anything, please reach out to me. Thank you.